Pain heals. Chicks dig scars. Glory lasts forever.
Despite her Asia Wilson whistle, Paige Bueckers fails to make the Dallas Wings better, fails to lead them to victory over the Indiana Fever, and they drop to, I believe, 8-21 now on the season, despite having a backcourt partner who is one of the best guards in the WNBA. It's just simply not working out for Paige Bueckers. Let's talk about this Fever victory a little bit. And there's a reason I said that for those who didn't watch the game, which I will get to in a minute. But this was a what we will call in the business a team victory. By the way, welcome. Thank you for being here. Appreciate your support. Hope you're having a fantastic day. Shout out to the 19. This was absolutely a team effort. There are still some issues that have to be worked out, which we'll talk about as well. Wish it had been a bigger victory. And yes, 8-21, that's where the Wings are. I do wish it had been a bigger victory, but hey, you know what? This is big for the Fever in that they struggled earlier in the season beating the teams that they should beat. So it is a good win, but of course I am always going to look at it. I always look at it and always have in sports. And sometimes, it's not as fun because the entertaining part isn't always there looking through the lens of a coach or analyst, but you hope for a bigger victory, but they played well. The entire team played well. Some of the issues I'd like to talk about, I don't think Michaela Timpson played nearly enough. Obviously, only 3 minutes. Chloe Bibby played only six, and she was 2 of 3 from three. Uh, so that was a little disappointing. She had the hot hand, came in early, hit two threes, and then took it out. And I believe I know why, which we will get to in a minute, because that is a coach issue in a couple of different respects that we'll talk about. But, Natasha Hara was big on the glass, 16 points, 5 assists, 2 steals. She played very, very well and only took 9 shots. She was 4 of 9. I mean, she was solid all across the board. Aaliyah Boston, solid across the board. 11 rebounds for her, 12 points, 11 rebounds. So we got a couple of double doubles in there. Kelsey Mitchell, 9 and 19, 23 points, plus 15 on the night. 3 assists as well. So, they're all kind of getting into the act. Sophie Cunningham. One thing that's irking me, I'd just like to point out with the Sophie Cunningham stuff, because it's still going on and she is being missed by everybody. It just doesn't seem like they want to pass to her. I don't know if it is a coach thing with the system, if there are personal things going on behind the scenes we don't know about. I mean, there was one play where Kelsey Mitchell actually hit a streaking Sophie Cunningham down the court for a quick fast break layup. So it's not like it's a complete freeze out or anything, but it just seems like I don't think I've ever seen Aaliyah Boston pass to Sophie Cunningham. It just seems at times where she seems wide open, and that's why we see her play 29 minutes and play well overall, but only get 5 shots off. She had 5 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 steals, and a block to that. Defended Paige very well. Ari McDonald Erin McDonald, Erin McDonald had an interesting game. She played well. Okay, I don't mean that in a negative, but as you can see from the numbers, 4 of 6 from three, and she's only like a 23% shooter from three this year, but 4 of 10 overall. So she couldn't get a single 2-pointer drop, but she was lighting it up from three. It's kind of wild, Ari. I don't know what to make of that. Dantas, her shot has been off lately. Now we saw the last game; she had that phenomenal move on Alyssa Thomas, who's clearly old and slow. And when she can't be physical and commit fouls, she's really gets smoked defensively. But again, Dantas I thought played well overall, even though she was a -10 because she was kind of in there for a bit of a Dallas run, but her shot's just not falling. I don't get that, but it's going to be interesting to see where the minutes come when Caitlin Clark comes back in. Obviously, Ari McDonald's going to have to play less. Sydney Colson might not play at all, because we've also got Chloe Bibby now. I mean, you see here we had 10 players play. Now, Timpson and Bibby didn't play very much, but we had 10 players. I think for the second game in a row. Now, about the Chloe Bibby thing that concerns me, and this concerns me as a team as well. I get there are defensive philosophies at times that can be the matchups and this and that. So this isn't a blanket, oh, Stephanie White's horrible and she can do no right in my mind thing. But sometimes you have to make adjustments. Now you may have a game plan defensively because of the matchups or whatever it is that the offense you think they're running that you're going to switch on everything, right? You're going to switch on every screen. And sometimes it's the other. It's you're going to fight through every screen no matter what. And then sometimes it's a pick and choose and you change things up. And I think that's where Stephanie White gets lost at times because the Fever were not at all fighting through screens last night. It was all about switching. And I think the reason Chloe Bibby came out because it might have been twice in a row or, two out of three trips down. They set a screen for Paige and the Fever just automatically switched. And now you've got Chloe Bibby out in space against Paige Bueckers. And she's playing offer, which makes sense because one, Paige has the Asia whistle, and two, Chloe is a different type of player. She's not necessarily going to be able to get uptight on Paige and prevent Paige from then driving. So she's laying off, and Paige hits a couple of buckets, and then also I think one of the landing space fouls that was Paige got two ridiculous landing space fouls. She shot 8 free throws. She shot 6 of them on two landing space fouls that never should have been happened. That if they were called for Caitlin Clark would have shot 759 free throws last year and set all kinds of scoring records. So I think that is a Stephanie White issue, and that she's got to work with the team on fighting through screens, especially in the W when most of them are not done well anyway, whether it's the screener who's not setting them well, but it's also the person coming off the screen that does terrible job of setting up the screen. That's what a lot of people I think forget as well. To be fair to some of the screeners, you have players who are terrible at setting up and coming off the screen so that the screen works. It's the screener's job to get set. It's the screen person coming off the screen's job to wait until they're set and then set up their defender to run that defender into the screen solidly so that they actually get free. Now, to the Page thing and the whistle, see, here is one of Bibby's threes, and here's an example of why this now, I'm not saying that should be called, but the two that Paige got, and I couldn't find them to show you, were actually less than that. And we all know all the times that we've seen Caitlin Clark actually get what should be a legit landing space foul and never ever gets that call. And as you can see from the post here, again, I ask, where was the landing space foul for a Fever player? Yeah, 100% because Paige was getting that call. Now, one thing I wanted to point out too, because a lot of the Paige kids are talking about how great Paige was and this and that. And again, it was more that you can't. And here's what I said about Asia Wilson too: is you can't. It's she's tough to defend because you know that the whistle is there. So what happens as a defender? You have to adjust to that, right? So what that usually means is you play off. Well, look, Paige, when it comes to an open shot from the outside, Paige is a very good shooter. So you're going to play off her 3, 4, 5 feet. She's going to make a lot of shots. But you're doing that not so much because you're worried about her driving, but because you're worried that if you get anywhere near her, you're going to commit a foul. And a lot of people were talking about, I saw, making these comments about how she lit up Sophie and this and that. Well, a lot of her buckets were not on Sophie, and it goes back to this not fighting through screens and automatically switching, which is a problem. Now, those times when maybe Paige doesn't get the whistle, and this is interesting too, because we always talk about Caitlin Clark flopping. When Paige tries to draw fouls and it's so obvious and she doesn't get the call, Sophie D, I mean, here's a great example, I think, of really D'ing up a player, right? She's in her face. See, now she's bodying up, and Paige is like, oh, well, I'm just going to go out. And then she complains, right? Hey, why don't I get that call? Well, Paige Bueckers, it's not a foul. That's why you don't get that call. So Sophie has no problem, and this is, I think, of anyone, right? Like Paige is not very quick. She doesn't have handles. She's a good dribbler, don't get me wrong. Like in terms of her skill set, she can dribble well, but she's not all that quick and explosive that if you can body her like Sophie Cunningham did, and I mean in the legal way, right? You're not reaching, you're not grabbing, you just got your body up against her in that position. You're not putting your hand on her hip or any of that. Paige can be a lot, a lot easier to defend without the Asia whistle, and there is a great example of it right there. And then we've got this. Now, why am I showing you this? Why am I showing you this? Caitlin Clark assists per game. I'll get to that. You're gonna love this. I'll get to this in a second. Caitlin Clark assists per game. 2017, she led high school. In 18, 19, and 20, she led high school. All 4 years nationally. We skipped 2021. Now, why is that? Because her freshman year, I believe she was second. It might have been third. Correct me in the comments below. I haven't looked in a long time. I'm going by memory, but she was second or third in the nation, but she did lead, and so they should have put that in here. They did lead. She did lead her conference in 2021, and then of course she led the NCAA in 22, 23, and 24, while also then leading the WNBA in 2024. Now, why do I bring that up in relation to talking about this game a little bit? Because for those of you who didn't watch, if you did, you heard this during the game. This is absolutely wild. Listen to these announcers talk.
Compare the rookie of the year last year to the potential rookie of the year this year. You can see their numbers are pretty much point by point. It is hard, but you can tell they are two different styles of players. You know, Paige is getting people more involved. Caitlin's more looking for her shot. But these two rookie comparisons, they are at the ultimate players.
Did you catch that? So first she says, if you look at it, they're almost identical. Well, Caitlin averaged 8.4 assists per game last year, which led the WNBA, 319 assists. Paige is averaging 5.5. The rest of the numbers are pretty close, but Caitlin dwarfs Paige in the assist category. And the announcer says, let me see if I have it right. Let's play this again for you.
But you can tell they are two different styles of players. You know, Paige is getting people more involved. Caitlin's more looking for her shot. But these...
You can tell, somehow by these numbers, you can tell they're two different style players. And the only thing you can tell in here is that Caitlin is much more of a facilitator and a passer. And then she gives you the opposite from that. She says Caitlin is looking for her shot, and Paige is getting everyone else involved. So somehow, Caitlin Clark, who dwarfs Paige Bueckers in assists per game, which clearly is getting other people more involved, is somehow the one looking for her shot, and Paige is getting more involved. This is that they've have you noticed the switch up? They're trying to get away from the Angel Reese stuff, and they want to make it a Paige Caitlin thing, and they're going to lie just as they always do. They're going to lie about it. We've talked about this before, and it's rare, right? Even most great players, they are great. They don't make their teammates better. Caitlin Clark is one of those rare players that elevates the play of her teammates, that makes her teammates better players just by Caitlin Clark being on the court. Paige Bueckers does not do that. And that is not a knock on Paige Bueckers. Like I said, it is a very, very rare thing. But here we are getting these absolutely clueless, ignorant announcers who are reading their script and like, oh, just so frustrating. You look at that and you say their numbers are the same, even though, again, the assist thing stands out. And then you flip it and you say the one who doesn't get the assist is somehow getting her teammates more involved. That is some wild nonsense we got going on there, folks. Wild, wild nonsense. So, anyway, overall, this is a good, solid win. And like I've said before, the Indiana Fever pick up another important win. Every win is going to be big from here on out. As I have said, and I think I said in the last video, the Mercury win, they could finish anywhere from 2 to 8. I think 1 is probably the only seed that isn't within reach, but everything else, again, 2 to 8. If they have a good stretch or a bad stretch, they could elevate to 2. They could drop all the way to 8, which makes things interesting, especially when you've got Caitlin Clark coming back. I think she's practicing now. Now, I don't think she's going, doing everything, but she is involved in practices. And then what's it? All right. All right, hold on 1 second. I got the producer in the ear again. What's that? Really? Really? Wow. Okay. So here I've got one thing to show you, and then before we finish up here, apparently apparently the green monster, Envy, has appeared once again in a game. And I believe wasn't Golden State last time as well? Is somebody following Golden State? Are they trying to make a statement? But yeah, down. Oh, there it is. Right. Okay, down there at the end of the court, off the court again. We have yet another. Is this going to become a thing? Is this going to become a thing? Is this going to be like it's going to start happening at every game? Is this just like a Golden State Valkyries thing we got going on? But apparently my producer thought this was breaking news and that you needed to know immediately that the green-headed monster Envy made another appearance at a WNBA game. So anyway, let's go back to get off of there. Let's see if we can show you real quick. The Fever have moved up to 5. Well, I don't know who the tiebreaker is. They have them at 5, so I'm going to assume that when they do the standings, they factor in tiebreakers. So they have Seattle at 6 with the same record. But you can see 7 and 8 are only 1.5 games behind the Fever. The Fever are only 1.5 games behind number 2 New York Liberty. 1 game behind number 3. Half a game behind number 4. Like I said, they have the difference between 8 and 2 is 3 games. All those teams in there. So it if things keep going like this, it could be a very, very wild. And they've all in their last 10 are very, very similar as well. You've got Indiana 7-3 the best, and then you've got a couple of 6-4 teams, and then some 5-3, 5-5 teams, and then the Mercury are 4-6 because they fell off dramatically when they got DeWanna Bonner. Like they were flying high, top team in the league. They were crushing everybody. Then they went and signed Skinny No Hips, and they've just fallen apart ever since DeWanna Bonner ended up in Phoenix. Apparently, shout out the W360. Too much, too much of the Humpty dance. Well, that's not how she put it, but that's how I'm going to put it. Too much of the Humpty dance going on in Phoenix. They don't have the energy for the basketball. But yeah. So anyway, overall, I think that was a really solid win. I think there's some tweaks they have to make. Like I said, their defense. I think they've got to work on fighting through screens a little bit more and that sort of thing. They got to get their rotations down. I don't, there's Chloe Bibby 6 minute stuff because again, that was on the coach and the defensive philosophy of the coach that put those switches so where Chloe Bibby is on Paige Bueckers. If you're going to make it that easy for the other team to constantly get mismatches, that's on you and that's a problem. And I'll end with this because it's a great example that I meant to bring up is if you all remember the first game against the New York Liberty when with Jonquel Jones, and it was like they made the AB Caitlin Clark pick and roll look blah with what they were doing with Jonquel Jones. I mean, the Fever defense got absolutely obliterated with their inability to handle the pick and roll with Jonquel Jones against New York. So I promise you, teams are watching that. Teams watch Dallas do that and get those matchups with Bibby and then and that put a hot hand on the bench. Again, 6 minutes, 2 of 3 from 3. And boom, that's it. She's done simply because they could not make a switch on a pick. But anyway, I'm going to leave it there. Appreciate you checking out this video as always. Smash the like button, subscribe to the channel. You know the drill. Go bombard Jason Whitlock. He's been getting on some YouTubers, but he gets on the wrong ones. He should have me on there, obviously, but I think he's scared to because I've clapped back at him with some of his ridiculous tweets. But anyway, maybe go bombard him with some messages, see if he has the courage to get me on. I'm going to leave it there. Go have the day you deserve. I will talk to you later.